What is the most evil company and why? Sanlu Group. The name may not be familiar, but in 2008 they were the center of an incident in China where their company replaced milk protein in baby formula with the chemical melamine, formaldehyde resin. 6 babies, 54,000 babies had kidney damage, many of whom are still on dialysis today, and 300,000 suffered the effects of malnutrition. Even by Chinese business standards, this was evil. A number of company owners were arrested, and some staff at the local government testing body were jailed for life. This was one of the largest ever food contamination incidents in the world, and it severely damaged the confidence of the Chinese public in their own food system. So much so, even today in 2018, in the country I live in, Australia, baby formula has become a hard to buy item in our local supermarkets. Many local Chinese immigrants routinely descend on supermarkets across the country to buy up all stocks of baby formula every day to send to relatives back home in China who resell the quality product at a profit. Edit. Typo 2019 changed to 2018. Edit 2. Changed Chinese standards to Chinese business standards. I have received a bit of a kicking for that line. I have just changed it to Chinese business standards. The general Chinese population are just like you and me. They just want the best for their kids. Having had to deal with many Chinese businesses at work over the years, my experience has not been good. Sometimes it seems they will do anything to make an extra penny. Instead of just asking you to pay more, they change stuff and don't tell you. Time after time after time. Valent, now known as, or part of, Bosch Companies. A medical company that buys drug patents and then dramatically hikes up the price to those that need it to survive. We are talking from hundreds of dollars a month to tens of thousands. Pure evil. Don't forget that they also cut R&D because it's a financial black hole. They let smaller companies do all the work, then buy them up when they patent an interesting new drug. It seems pretty obvious that this isn't going to work on the long term once they own all the former research facilities. Didn't Bayer knowingly give a bunch of people AIDS back in the 80s? Read into this on Wikipedia. Cutter Laboratories, purchased by Bayer, made that mistake. In 1955 Cutter also released 120,000 doses of polio vaccine which contained live polio virus. From Wikipedia. Of children who received the vaccine, 40,000 developed abortive poliomyelitis, a form of the disease that does not involve the central nervous system. 56 developed paralytic poliomyelitis, and of these, 5 children died from polio. 2. The exposures led to an epidemic of polio in the families and communities of the affected children, resulting in a further 113 people paralyzed and 5 deaths. Church of Scientology. The Church of Scientology really is fucking wild. If anyone is unaware of just how the whole thing is, I really encourage you to check it out. It's insane. Edit. If you're interested, watch or listen to this episode of the Joe Rogan Experience with Lee Remini. She was a member of the church and goes into detail on some of the things that most people don't know about. It's pretty eye-opening that a good number of the celebrities that we all know are into this. Purdue Pharma. Check the ongoing opiate/heroin epidemic. They gave the world OxyContin, paid off doctors to prescribe it, and straight up lied, saying it wasn't addicting. Their marketing campaign and fundamentally corrupt ethics are a big reason tens of thousands of people are dying out here. Made billions and paid off like a few million. They made bank and society/taxpayers are footing the bill. FM. Georgia ruins small businesses and destroys the sense of community in rural towns. AB Rubber Company. Now I think measuring it against other companies, East India Company, Nestle, and United Fruit are bad, is a bit pointless. At the same time, the colonial history of rubber trade is especially evil. So in 1885 there was a conference in Berlin famously called the Berlin Conference, where European powers met to decide how they were going to carve up a continent. In the conference Belgium, but specifically King Leopold I of Belgium, got control of the Congo. The Congo is a massive resource-rich nation. The main resource Europeans were interested in however was rubber. Rubber was necessary for their car tires, their conveyor belts for their new factories that kept popping up, for boots, etc. And it only grows at certain latitudes in certain biomes. And inarguably today the Congo has rare earth minerals, gold, diamonds, uranium, etc. So Leopold, who owns the entire country with tens of millions of people, sets up companies that are designed to extract rubber from the Congo and sell it abroad. ABIR is one of several. So these companies basically set up posts in the Congo along the river and then send armed agents into the Congo to villages, forcibly enslave them, and then work them in gut-wrenching conditions. Famously, if people didn't meet their rubber quota, their loved ones got their hands chopped off as punishment. Naturally, in environments like this, taking care of basic needs, like agriculture, is incredibly difficult, so people begin to die off from disease, maltreatment, and hunger. It's estimated that the rule over the Congo Free State left an estimated 10 million people dead. Didn't Nestlé give baby formula to women in third world countries for free for a amount of time? And once the women had stopped producing breast milk, they hiked up the price of the formula, leaving the women unable to feed their children whatsoever. Not even going into their ridiculous hike up on bottled water. I read about them doing this in third world countries, setting themselves up at the local birthing hospitals and paying the doctors and nurses to give it out like it was health advice and health products from a trusted source. But it was for-profit private products designed specifically to harm newborns, children, mothers, and families for profit. And they did this for years and then fought to continue doing it once they were exposed. They also steal third world countries' water and use human slave labor on a mass scale. Nestle might win this contest. I have had brief interactions with Nestle through my work, and frankly even the people I dealt with were assholes. Their feedback and commentary was horrendous and insulting to the outside people involved. It wasn't helpful, just cruel. Horrible company with shitty people. Recently, Nestle was trying to bottle up a water source near me. The town it was in held a meeting to get some of the locals' input, so Nestle sent busloads of workers in the morning to fill up seats, so that there was no room for the locals to get in. Not many people probably know it, but there was a company called Federal Pacific that manufactured millions of breaker boxes from the mid-60s into the 90s. The breakers were poorly designed and would sometimes fail to trip when required, which could cause a fire when a circuit was under heavy load. It was discovered that Federal Pacific falsified their RAL listing and knowingly sold millions of these defective breakers to consumers. An engineer named Jess Ehrenstein estimates that Federal Pacific breakers were responsible for roughly 2,800 electrical fires in the US annually. Once the public found out they were knowingly selling defective breakers, the company immediately dissolved and left without a trace, not owing a cent for the thousands of house fires they caused. FIFA. It's corrupt as shit, complicit in many deaths, and has an insane impact on the countries it hosts in. The East India Trading Company, they legit conquered and ran India with an iron fist. They also ran opium with the Chinese, which led to the Opium Wars. A company conquered a country. For-profit prisons as a whole are an aberration. They take government funding and take out a large slice for themselves before using the rest to fund the prison. Then, they force inmates into labor, sell that labor for dollars, and give the inmates pennies. When you get out, they send you a bill for the costs of your incarceration. And if you don't have money because, you know, you were incarcerated, they garnish your wages. And if you get a windfall, like inheritance or lottery winnings, they take that too. And if they don't get enough inmates, since the government funding is per inmate, they have lobbies that pressure the courts to sentence more people, so they get more money. Did I mention they were developed because government prisons were overpopulated? Yeah, that's not really helping. The sugar industry as a whole is pretty evil. British Petroleum, BP. They are arguably responsible for the mess Iran is in now. Since the UK and US governments in the 1950s conspired to overthrow the democratic government of Iran, they installed a puppet government, the Shah of Iran, whose responsibility was to give away the Iranian-owned half of the company to allow BP to exist as a solely British venture. Never mind the whole destroyed the ecosystem of the Atlantic Ocean with the Deepwater Horizon disaster. The Gulf of Mexico is one of the critical breeding grounds for most species that live in the Atlantic.